Leading to Here. Extraordinary stories from everyday leaders.
Welcome to Leading to Here. This is a podcast series where we spend a little time with some of the talented, relatable, everyday people who, in the bigger picture of things, may go under the radar that we've been lucky enough to work with at Think in Focus over the last 7 years or so. Barry is General Manager of Asics for South Africa and the Africas. Living out in Cape Town, he has a career that began on the golf course and has taken him around a number of the world's most famous sports brands, not to mention his reputation as a snappy dresser. Barry, welcome.
Hey Barry, you okay?
Yes, nice to speak to you again, guys. Long time.
It has been ages.
Yeah.
It's been ages.
Well, as you've been moving around the world, Barry, it's hard to keep up with you.
I know, well, I had to get away, didn't I? So I went as far as I could.
So Barry, tell us a little bit about your current role and the work you do at Asics currently.
Okay, so in a snapshot, I am the general manager for Asics, which is a sports brand. We mainly do running shoes. We dominate the running market. We are Japanese, based in Kobe in Japan. I report into Europe. I report into Amsterdam, which is my regional office. But I run the market here. I'm the general manager. I've been here for 6 years. I landed in February 2018. And I love it. And I run the operation here. We supply wholesale and we've also got retail outlets. I have a senior management team across all the functions, which is marketing, operations, finance and sales. And we run this market.
But you didn't always start off doing this kind of work, Barry, did you? So let's go back a bit and sort of track your history that led you to here. What was little Barry like? What was he like when he was at school? How was that? How was growing up for you?
Well, I'm Scottish, and so don't hold that one against me. My whole family's Scottish, actually. We were born in Fife. I was born in Kirkcaldy. My mum was from Uchtamuchty. You try and pronounce that when you've had a few. But we moved quite quickly through my dad's job. My dad was like a senior guy it was a company called Nairn, which is Scottish. It was flooring at the time, lino. I'm going a long way back, by the way. And we moved to Sheffield, where I probably get my accent from. And I was.
How old were you when you moved?
I was 2 years old, just under 2.
So you don't really remember being in Scotland too much, I guess, then?
No. So that's my family's got a Scottish accent because they were born and bred there. I moved too quick for that. So we moved to Sheffield, and I loved Sheffield. I loved Yorkshire. I was very happy there. I've got some memories. I'm going way back. I'm 63, so I've had to trawl through my memory bank for this meeting because it's a long time ago. But yeah, I remember being very happy in Sheffield. We moved to Manchester when I was 11 years old.
Okay, and again, was that following your dad's job?
My dad moved offices based in Manchester, so we moved just to the suburbs of Manchester, and that's where I went to big school, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Oh, I hated school.
What was wrong with big school?
I don't know, Ricky. I don't know, really. I've often thought about why, because you talk to a lot of people and they say, oh, my happiest days was at school and I loved it and I've got friends. Like a school reunion is my worst nightmare. I mean, it was just, I couldn't get out quick enough, and I'll talk about probably why in a second, but it wasn't a great school. I really didn't engage with it, and I didn't have a family that really pushed me, which wasn't an excuse, but I really didn't settle there.
So was that about friend groups? Was it about the fact that you moved? Was it just, academically you weren't really bothered?
Probably all of those things, Rich, if I'm honest. I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't good at it. I didn't have a subject that I shone. I was okay. But one of my happy memories is actually leaving school. So yeah, that wasn't, and that was in Manchester. So I stayed at that school from when I arrived. I think I was 11 or 12 until I left.
But what you say you didn't have a subject that you excelled at, but you were a talented athlete, I think. So there must have been something in PE or in games or whatever that at least gave you an outlet.
Yes, of course. If you're not academically talented, which I wasn't, then sport is a go-to. And I love the sport, and I played a decent level of football, and I was a member of as many sports teams, basketball even.
Yeah.
I remember badminton, and so it was my go-to to represent the school and do the sports representation rather than the academic route.
So how was that at home then? You said your parents perhaps didn't really push you academically. So was it just kind of accepted that that's what it was, and you were playing sport? What was that sort of conversation like if it happened?
Well, my sister was the clever one. So she went to grammar school as they were then. So she was always the one that was sort of leading the academic, and I was leading maybe the non-academic and the sporting conversations or routines in the house for my parents, collecting me and dropping me off, but it was always on the sporting field rather than in the classroom.
And then you said you couldn't wait to leave. What happened then? Did you go on to college, or were there other things that you were trying to do?
No. I in between that, the end part, I really enjoyed whatever type of work I could get.
Yeah.
Because I like the money, and I like the trading, and that bit is probably where my journey or my career started, because I remember we used to do car washing on a Sunday around the estate, and I worked at a newsagent, and I renovated old bikes and made cash that way. So I was busy even when I was at maybe 15, 16, 17 at school, trying to trade and earn cash. I wanted the cash, and I enjoyed the cash. So that was my sort of route. So me leaving school when I could didn't scare me, because again, in my day, the universities were there for the really clever guys, and I wasn't. And I thought I need to go and get a job, and I need to work, and I need to earn money, and that was my motivation to exit my unhappy period, if you like, to go and see what was out there.
But you'd had a little taste then of trading, the cut and thrust, and the trying to do a bit of a deal and making a bit of money.
Yeah.
And that came quite a young age by the sounds of it then.
Sounded very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I think this definitely came from my parents. I had a very good work ethic.
Yeah.
Work didn't scare me. Work was something that I would enjoy and I would get pleasure from, because it gave me cash, and that cash gave me a car or choices or a holiday or a night out. And that work ethic has definitely remained with me. But that was definitely the fabric of the house. My dad was busy. My mum worked. So that work ethic really did kind of sit with me and has always since.
Tell me then, because you went on and became a golf professional. So at what stage did that start to come to the fore? When did you realise, hey, I'm good at this? Actually, I'm perhaps good enough to make a living from doing this.
Well, I was a good golfer, so I enjoyed it. And of course, everybody wants to be a footballer. I didn't want to be a footballer. I wanted to be a golfer. And my parents let me try it. I did it for a period of time. And then you have to qualify. You have to go through the system to get your badge and your honours, and then you can become a fully fledged professional. So there was a deadline, there was a tipping point where you say, I'm going to stick with this or I'm going to exit. And luckily, I had a brain and I exited because all you want to do is hit a golf ball and it was way before Tiger Woods, be successful on the golf course. And that was never going to be. I mean, some of these guys are superhuman even then. So I was fortunate enough to have the brain cells to think I can be foolish and stick with this and earn nothing or go into business. So I tried it. I loved it. I loved every moment of what I did. But surrounding that, the pay was terrible. And this is where.
So you were at a golf club by this point. So
yes,
you kind of you'd found your club. What? Because I suppose the myth is a bit that you're just playing golf every day, but I don't think that's quite the case, is it?
The challenge for golfers that can't earn the living on the course is they end up becoming shopkeepers, don't they, Barry?
Correct. So I worked for Phil Jarvis, who was the qualified pro. I was classed as an assistant, and I worked in the shop. And actually, that was a part of it. Again, I really enjoyed. I loved the customer interaction. I loved selling stuff and the trade. And that kind of flicked a switch for me to say, listen, you've enjoyed it, get out, but stay in this trading environment. But I was there a few years, but my work ethic kicked in, and I'll give you an example. Because I really didn't have any money through that work, I had to work elsewhere. Because I wanted my holidays, I wanted my car, I wanted to go out. So I worked in a bakery 6 mornings a week.
Right.
I used to get up at 4:15. I used to start at 5 and finish at 8:30, and then go to the golf club 6 days a week. And if you want to know what tiredness is, work in a bakery 6 mornings a week all my life.
So what were you doing?
We were making buns for it was only a small micro bakery. It was a local in Altrincham. It was a local guy that supplied the pubs and restaurants.
So that Barry, then, if we'll jump forward a bit, but does that impact your expectations of some of the people that have worked for you over the years, that you're looking for people that want to put the graft in, that want to do the miles, go out and see customers, have conversations, work hard? Is that something that you're always looking for in people?
Yeah, I've employed a lot of people over the time, and I have always gone to the person with the right attitude rather than the qualifications first.
Yeah.
So if I sit in front of somebody that really wants it, really has convinced me that they will get up early and they will do a day's work and they will go home late and they won't moan about it and expect too much from it, I would always go with that person. Listen, I've not always got it right, but I will always go with the attitude and the application towards what's expected in that role than a degree or super qualifications.
But I think that's the same in sport, isn't it, Barry? You'd rather have somebody who's prepared to graft, no matter how talented they are, because talent that's not applied is wasted.
Yes, and Ricky, you're right. You see that all the time. And that frustrates the hell out of me because if I had my work ethic and some of the talent that is knocking around, oh my word. But I had to overcompensate, and my work ethic has stayed with me, and it's not wavered. It's not wavered today than it was when I first started working, whenever that was 40 odd years ago.
So you decide you want a bit more, and you move on from just being the golf pro and you start working for, was it Fitwell Golf Company? So how did this come about? Because it feels like you've made a transition to go and be on the other side of the counter almost in the shop. So what happened?
Well, I realised that I needed to get out because I'd served my time and it was a lovely journey. But I had to then decide what to do. And I enjoyed that trade. So I remember applying for some jobs. I don't know if it's still going now, but the Grocer magazine. that had all the jobs in. That's where you found the jobs. And I went for a few interviews with, I can't remember all the brands, but they were brands. Okay.
Yeah.
And I got in and I was in front of these people and I think I had a good interview, but I had no experience, none, of FMCG, knocking on a door, filling out the reports, in the field. I had nothing. So I remember I went to one interview and the guy said, listen, just go and sell something anywhere or anything, but just sell. Even if it's door to door, go and sell something and then come back to me, because then I will say you've actually put the hours in, you know how your day works and the systems you have to work within. And that was a big moment for me.
Yeah.
So I got a job actually through the golf, because this guy supplied the shop and he was retiring, and it was an agency. So we sold multiple brands to the golf pros. And as he was retiring, I got his job and I replaced him. And that's how I started. And that gave me then the sort of routine as a salesperson, a sales rep.
So you're learning the fact that you've got to make so many calls a day. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to follow up. You've got to get to know your customer. You understand their business. So again, this is a good grounding, I guess, for what was to come later, without you sort of realizing it in as much depth as that.
Yes.
So I suppose that's like a mini apprenticeship then for you, Barry, is cut your teeth on something.
It was, and actually, I really envy people that want to be a joiner or a teacher or just have a real passion for a career that they know they will be successful at and they would just love. I never felt that, as far as this is what I really want to do and I really want to be. And actually, I still don't. If I'm really honest, I've gone through my career, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, but there's never anything that I said, I wish I'd really followed that route. So this was a kind of a one stage after the next stage after the next stage that kind of led me into things, rather than I had a real plan and an action program of where I wanted it to start or even finish.
But you did know what you wanted it to feel like. You did know, what your meaning or purpose was, which was about creating a life or a lifestyle that you could enjoy. So it was almost like, I do this and I get to enjoy myself doing the things that I really enjoy.
Yes, and that was very selfish for me. I wanted the spoils, and I was prepared to work for it. I was prepared to put the hours in, and that was mine. And nobody could take that away. Before I ended up having a wife and kids, I was single, and I thought, if I do this for me, then this is what I get from it. And that was very clear to me that connection was, well, that's logical. Why wouldn't I do that?
Leading to here. If you're a leader and have a story to tell, reach out at hello@thinkingfocus.com.
So it almost sort of feels like you'd worked out, look, my hard work is going to get me somewhere, and it's going to get me the things that I want. What was happening with your mates? Did you have mates that went off to uni and stuff, and were they studying, and perhaps you got more money in your pocket and driving a car, and did you have a bit of that sort of thing going on?
Yes, definitely. I remember I bought, when I was 17, was it 16? I had a moped, a Yamaha FS1E. Hey.
I can imagine you on a moped.
We had, there was a group of us, but because I was working, I think it's 16 you can drive these things, or maybe 17.
It was 16, Barry, yeah. I had something similar.
Yeah. So I was out on the road, and I was out on the road with my buddies at nights and at the weekends, going places because I could afford it. And my other buddies that couldn't, because they weren't doing what I was doing there. But that group was a good group, and then I bought a car, and so I was very active with, at the time, golfers, because that was my community. But after that, when I moved to Fitwell, and that, I did have choices because of my income, and that gave me the freedom.
Now, you said you'd not ever sort of got some big grand career plan. It was more things were just happening. But some point at Fitwell, I guess, because your next move is you move to Adidas. Is that right?
Yes.
So I'm wondering, was there a realization that you kind of went, actually, I could make a career here in this industry? There are some big players. You'd had that interview that you talked about where they said, go sell something. So now was this you saying, are there some big boys out there I could go and get stuck into and learn from and work at?
Yeah, and Ricky got it right. It was definitely an apprenticeship. It was definitely me being able to say, okay, I've done the streets. I've learnt the ropes. I'm now, and I really enjoyed that role. I was calling on these guys and selling them stuff, and I thoroughly enjoyed that experience. And I enjoyed working on my own. I enjoyed being out on the road. I enjoyed planning my routes, and I got a bit. It was never seen as a, oh, here we go again today. I really did enjoy that time, but I knew it was a stepping stone to. My dad was with a brand. It was corporate. He wore suits and he had a company car and he cleaned it at the weekend. And it's that was what I was used to. But he never pushed that direction with me. But I liked what I saw.
Yeah.
And actually, I ended up kind of going the same direction. So I moved to a brand. Was really the next one, and because I enjoyed sport and I'd been through golf and I'd sold golf. Sport environment was always
a familiar one. Something
I was never going to go and be interviewed by Coca-Cola or Kellogg's that wasn't my bag. I was trying to get a combination of what I was sort of good at and my passion, which was sport.
But you kind of went for the biggest one on the market at the time, because Nike were nowhere near at this point, were they?
No, Nike had only just started and really weren't a competitor for me. But I got an interview with a guy called Ian Wood and Richard Wade at the time, and they grilled me. And again, I was struggling because I didn't have any classical training. And I really didn't think I'd convince them, but maybe my attitude came across, and they gave me a go as a sales rep for Adidas footwear at the time, which was just incredible. But the market was a lot smaller than it is today. It's huge now. But that started me, and I got a company car. I remember arriving at the office, and I got a Vauxhall Cavalier L.
Nice.
Wow.
I know.
Living the dream.
B42 TWY. There you go. And I thought, whoa, because I used to break cars and sell cars and go to auctions, and to have a new car that I didn't have to patch up every week was just life-changing. Seriously, life-changing for me.
And this must have been a step up, because now you're in a big company. I assume
Yes.
they were organised, they had systems, they had processes. So what were some of the first things that you learned in this role then that have stood you in good stead?
Well, I was there a long time. I was there 19 years altogether. So my journey with Adidas changed dramatically through the years. But what I grabbed quickly was do your job, and you'll be fine. You just go out there, and then there wasn't that much structure. It's not like FMCG, which is, sales training and train the trainer and on in-field training, that stuff. I never had that experience to start with, but it was just go and do your number, deliver, and get on with people, follow the process, and succeed that way.
How long were you at that then? How long were you out carrying the bag, to use one of the phrases that's used in the industry? How long were you out carrying the bag, seeing customers, selling products? And also, out of interest, what did you got in the bag? What were you selling?
Well, actually, at the time, it was the range, but now they were more or less called originals. That was what I was selling. I wish I'd bought a pair of everything I sold, because they were the originals. But you don't know that at the time, of course. So I was footwear. I worked with a sales guy that was doing my territory on apparel, clothing. And so I did that for 2 years. And then I got promoted.
So you'd done your job really well. You see an opportunity to move up. What was driving the ambition then? Was it actually there's more money, there's a bit more, status? Or were you thinking, I'd like to learn something else? I'd like to manage people at this point? Because I'm guessing that then starts to kick in from this point on.
Rich, to be honest, I still didn't have a career plan, if I'm honest. I enjoyed what I was doing. I was earning decent money. I was in a relationship, and so things were really happening for me. The work was super exciting because the numbers and the growth were just ridiculous. This was before people were on PlayStations or mobile phones, so their go-to product was trainers, sneakers. That's what people spent money on, and to have a brand like Adidas was incredible because you were everybody's friend, and it was a very exciting time. And then I had a boss or two that gave me a break and promoted me, then put me in front of people and to manage people, which I remember to this day.
Yeah.
Which probably was the most scary moment of my life.
Why? What scared you?
The responsibility, because till then I'd just worked on my own, and if I did well, I got a bonus, and if I didn't let anybody down. It was just me. It was a bit like playing a team sport. If you go solo on a golf course and you mess up, it's you. If you're in a team event and you mess up, it's a bigger story. And I always remember when I got the job, I got this wave of, whoa, now this is different. And I sort of knew what to do because I kind of, if I like being managed that way, why wouldn't I implement that sort of system?
So you were looking at the way you'd been managed and thinking, right, this is what's good, this is what's not. I'll do a bit of that.
So the overwhelming responsibility calmed down quite quickly to say, hang on, this shouldn't be too difficult because you've had some great managers and leaders, and why not just apply what has suited you with my style for these people.
How many people did you first have then when you get in this first role?
It was about, it was covered in regions. So there was about 5 direct reports, which was covering the UK and Ireland at the time. So Scotland was a region, Ireland was a region, and then it broke down. But there was a lot of accounts, a lot of people.
So you're also carrying quite a number of financial responsibility there, but that doesn't sound like that was daunting for you. It was more at that first stage, actually, I've got to try and be a good manager for these people.
Yes. And again, I suppose I come back to my work ethic that, working on a Sunday night to get ready for the Monday so I didn't let anybody down was not a problem. It was not a problem. I did that for me because I wanted a good week. I don't want to get in the car on the Monday and go, ooh, what am I doing today? I needed to be on top of things, ahead of the team, and ready to lead them to make sure we had a successful week. So, yeah, it was. He kind of slotted into place quite naturally, actually, with a few moments. Managing people, leading people has huge problems sometimes, but he never felt like a burden. I enjoyed it a lot, and we were very successful.
Barry, you talked about you'd had the fortune to be amongst good managers. Who, in that early part of your career, particularly with Adidas, who did you identify as actually they're a real influence in terms of what set me up for success, and what did they do?
Through this conversation, Ricky, I've probably got 3 people to call out. Two of them were at Adidas, actually. The first one is the old managing director, Bob McCulloch, who joined from Procter & Gamble, actually. So he brought a whole new view of business, because the sports trade is quite unsophisticated, always has been. But of course, Procter & Gamble is very sophisticated, and he brought a really interesting mix of skills and business ethic into the business. He's no longer with us, but he was one of my first bosses, and then he became managing director. And he influenced me a lot, just with his business acumen, his savvy, his personality, his leadership skills. I'll never forget. He just created a persona of confidence and inclusivity. He was one of my first really big guys, if you like, that taught me an awful lot.
And you never forget your first, do you, Barry?
No, and he was big. He was an influence on me. He was a personal friend. He became part of the family as our families grew up, but he was always a supporter of mine, gave me the breaks, and I love working with him and for him. He was an easy guy to just be around, and the whole group at the time delivered for Bob, with Bob, because he was just such a charismatic guy.
You wanted to do it for him, sort of thing.
Yes, but he made it easy, Rich, as well, and I wanted it for him, but with him, we just felt as though we were sort of in the same bus, and it wasn't an effort, and it was exciting times again. Our numbers were just going nuts because the trade was just exploding. We had amazing product, and then Predator came along, and David Beckham, and the Spice Girls, and it was just nuts. You just couldn't take your eye off it for a second because it was moving so quickly, and that's a great place to be.
Yeah, sounds exciting. You mentioned two others. You said there's three people to call out, so that Bob's one. Who else was there?
Another one at the time was my direct report, Cass Smith, who's still around. She's on the board of JD Sports, I think, just now. And she came from another industry. She was from the drinks trade, and she probably taught me more about sales and sales technique and people management than anybody else. And again, we're very close. I was her wingman. She supported me. She gave me all the breaks, really big breaks, probably more than anybody. And we worked together for a long time at Adidas, and things were just progressing incredibly fast. And we built teams. We made all the structural changes together. We were very close, and she taught me so much day to day that I definitely apply today in my work sense. And she was very influential with me.
So she clearly made a big impact as well. And you said there was a third.
The last one's Alistair Cameron, who gave me a break at New Balance. Who again is, I see the leadership quality in these people. And, I've had a lot of bosses. We'll go back to Alistair in a second. I've had a lot of bosses. Not everybody wants to be a leader. Not everybody can be a leader. And I've had some bad bosses, but the people that I've always, the ones I've thrived with are the ones that I've always felt as though they wanted me in the room. That I didn't realize how important that was at the time until you work for a boss that you think, this person really doesn't want me in the room. Without saying it, you just get, I'm older and wiser, you get that vibe. But when you get somebody that says, like Bob, come on the bus, it's incredible. And those are the guys, male and female, that have inspired me.
So Alistair, you said, gave you a break at New Balance, because after you sort of 18, 19 years or so at Adidas, you've done lots, you've learned lots, you've gone from carrying the bag to running regions and big budgets and delivering numbers, and the industry sounds like it's super exciting and it's growing. and then you make a shift to go to New Balance, which is a brand that we all know now, but then the brand wasn't perhaps as well known. Was it Alistair that you went with, or how did the New Balance move come about?
No, I was at Adidas 19 years, and I'd worked for probably 13 managing directors. And I kind of just run out of road with Addy, if I'm honest. I maybe had one bad boss too many, which is bad. Well, not a bad boss, but a boss that didn't want me in the room. And so the trade is the trade. It's quite small. And there was a vacancy at New Balance, and I went for the interview, and I met Alistair at the interview.
Okay.
He was running New Balance at the time, and him and the HR lady, and I got the job straight away. And I just get such a vibe from Alistair that he wanted me in the room, and that was the start.
And you wanted to be part of it. You wanted to work for him. So you were getting all the right vibes. And what was the role that you moved for?
That was the country manager I started with. And it was fine. It was a progression for me. I had more responsibilities of different departments, so it was new. I didn't know too much about Alistair and what New Balance was to hold. But what it did give me was the European head office was based in the UK, whereas at Adidas it was a subsidiary to report into Germany.
Yeah.
Whereas the European head office was in Warrington, which was up the road from where I live. So I just had a good feeling that this could progress me, and there's the scope for development there.
What was going on at home at this time, Barry, as well? So you mentioned family and stuff as we've talked, and as you said there, this was just up the road from you. So was the stuff going on there that actually this helped as well?
Yeah, it did. I was married. I had 2 kids. I travelled a bit, but I didn't travel a lot. That was to come, which didn't help things, if I'm honest. But at the time, no, I was, yes, the money was good. I enjoyed what I was doing. The home life was fine. The kids were growing up, and everything was good. Everything was all right.
If you enjoy Leading to Here, listen to our sister podcast, The Question Is, by Thinking Focus.
And what was it like going from that sort of market leader at the time in Adidas, where, as you mentioned, everyone knows the brand. It's one of the most recognizable on the planet. We've all got a connection to it probably in some way. What was it like going from that back then to New Balance, who probably, the brand, as I said now, is massive, but back then it wasn't so much. So how did that feel? Was that an exciting sort of challenge as well?
Yes, but by now I've got some very good relationships. I've got some very good contacts, friends. The trade is small, so Adidas, you supply those guys, and at New Balance you supply the same guys. Yeah. So you use your experience and your relationships and your contacts to get things going, and I got things going. And any position like that is to come in and grow the business, and we grew the business. But because you're carrying a different bag, as I say, but you're still doing the same thing, and a number's a number, and the target's the target, and it's that sense of achievement. And actually, what's interesting is, if you're a market leader, there's only one way to go. So you defend yourself all the time. You're up for attack. And, if you're on a 40% market share and you come down to 38, then all hell breaks loose, because you're going backwards, and no business can afford to go backwards. You come in with a 10% market share and you get to 14 or 15, you're a hero. So it was really interesting, the shift of the win, and the excitement of the achievement and the progress that you can make, regardless of where it's starting from. It was a very exciting time, and actually New Balance, I've gone from Adidas, which is German, and then New Balance, which is American, which is completely different culture and understanding of the local markets.
Tell us a bit about that. Elaborate. What did you see that was different between German-led to this American-led business? How did it feel?
Well, at the time, for me, Europe is Europe, and the consumers are different, but fundamentally not that different as far as sports products are concerned. And the approach is very European. And an American company doesn't really get what Europe is all about.
Yeah.
Because it's over there, and the American market is so big, it dominates. But then you have the odd pocket of brilliance where you've got like a manager that knows Europe, that is based in America, but they travel and they get it, and then they report back, and then they're your link person to give some insight to head office. But it was it was very noticeable that Europe was not in their backyard, and he brought certain challenges as a consequence of that.
And we've observed that working with US companies, that sometimes they don't realise that Europe is not a collection of many different countries, and there's sort of an assumption at times that whatever works in the States will work in Europe, and you must have run into that. Yeah,
correct. Yes, absolutely. And what they go to Germany and they understand Germany and they expect France to be the same, and it's not. But we know that. But the Americans just go, this is one continent, it's all the same. And when they get here, they really, unless they're regular travellers, really didn't understand that.
So New Balance, then, you do a couple of different roles at New Balance. So I think you're a country manager, and you said, you touched there a little bit on, now you've got different functions. So I assume you've now got finance, you've got marketing, you've got different things to just having what you were more comfortable with in terms of sales. This is an interesting career development for you. What did you learn at this point then, Barry? What over that period, what did you learn about having different functions that you're not necessarily a specialist in working for you?
I learned that the only way for me to be successful was to bring these people in. And it was quite interesting because if people work in separate silos and functions, that's what they get used to.
Yeah.
And that's fine, because that's what they're used to. When somebody like me comes in and tries to glue everybody together and invites them to meetings that they've never been invited to before, or brings them into conversations, or takes them to different places, it freaks people out. But then they quite like it, because actually they want to belong and they want to understand what their role plays in another person's life, and how the bouncing ball kind of goes through the business. So, and I'd seen that before, not just the way I worked, but other managers and leaders. And it was a very easy one for me to say, come along, get on the bus. We'll all come on the bus, no matter what function you're in, no matter what level, because you all play a part and you all connect the dots. And without you connecting the dot, this is what happens. And that was very easy for me. Although some people resisted, because it was like, I've never done this before. What you're trying to do? Why is this extra work? Are you trying to change my job? But actually, people settle into it quite quickly.
How did you cope with not being the expert? Because I've worked quite closely with you, and I've seen you, in my opinion, do this pretty well. But I'd like to hear how you cope with it. You've got a function. Let's say it's HR. Let's say it's finance. You are not the expert, Barry. So how did you cope in taking advice or learning to ask the right questions? How did you cope with that?
It's never bothered me that I'm not the expert, because if I wanted to be an accountant, I would have been an accountant. If I wanted to be a marketeer, I would have been a marketeer. So I don't have envy. I just admire these people that are so talented in their function, and most of these people, that's what they've wanted to do. Head of operations. I'd hate to be head of operations. I'd hate to be head of finance. But I love it when I've got somebody in my team that is an expert, and I can overview them. I can push them around into the right space and get them to where I want them to be without interfering with their lives. And I am very comfortable with that. I don't need to overmanage or duplicate. I always remember, if you're doing my job, then there's no room for two of us. So that might have come from you, Rich, actually.
Don't give him that credit, Barry, please.
It's been very clear in my life that my head of finance here, Viveka, is superhuman at what she does. And I'll never get to understand what she does because she's qualified. But I manage her in a way that really helps the rest of the business, helps her understand the rest of the business, and makes her broader because I can overview her role and weave it through all the other functions.
Leading to Here. For mental models and tools for leaders, visit our YouTube channel, Thinking Focus.
So New Balance, 4 or 5 years, and then...
I finished there I did a European role, which really exposed me to all the markets across Europe. And funnily enough, this is an Alistair story. I was the sales director, so I headed up sales for Europe, Middle East and Africa. But because Alistair liked coming to Africa and the Middle East, I only did Europe. So if he's listening to this because he's still in the trade, he denied me, but he paid it back later on. But I was away all week. So Germany, I was away 1 week, and then I go to France, and then I do Scandinavia, and then I do Italy, then I do Spain, and then I do, and actually it cost me quite a lot personally. But it taught me a lot about the different markets and how from a distance to get people in the right space and to deliver and to achieve their objectives and goals. But that's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, if I'm honest.
So it gave you a brilliant orientation of the different cultures around Europe and how they interact and how they think. So it really sets you up for like you said, a Europe, Middle East, Africa, global type of role in the future. But you said it cost you personally. So I'm imagining there were some sacrifices at home that you made. Does that lead you to start thinking about other changes? Because you made an interesting move after that from when we've talked before. You went to work for Intersport. Tell us a bit about that and what happened there.
Intersport, for the people that don't know, is the largest sporting goods retailer in the world. But definitely when I was there, and I represented the UK and Ireland, and basically it's a buying group.
Right.
And I was the middleman with my team based in the Midlands. So you represent the members who are independents, who sign up to be part of the group, and then the group represents them to be the go-between, the brokers, the negotiators to the suppliers. And it's such a great model, it works.
You've not quite crossed to the other side then, but you're using your contacts, I guess, that you know around the world in this role to help Intersport begin to grow and change.
Yeah, you are as close to retailing as I've been, but I still was definitely on the supply side. And what I really enjoyed with this, and it took me right back to my Adidas days, is these are all independents, and I love independent retailers, traders.
So when you say independent, you mean you've sort of got the small sports shop that we saw perhaps in every town. Maybe it's used to get in the UK, didn't you? Like an ex-professional footballer back in playing football and open a sports shop, that kind of thing.
Yes. cricket shops that you'll know, Rich, all these guys that have a passion for sport, have fallen into, a bit like you were saying, Ricky, with my sport, and you fall into golf and then you fall into sports. These guys were good cricketers or good footballers. What shall I do now? And they opened a sports shop in the local town. But there were some very good retailers, don't get me wrong. And again, my role there was to glue everybody together so that the power of the group was very clear. Although when I joined them, the guy I replaced didn't do that. So it was an easy run for me to say, listen, collectively, if we stay together and strong, we'll all benefit. And they're very good retailers, and maybe 2 or 3 generations in, very passionate about what they do. And I enjoyed that time. It was a very short time because Alistair was waiting in the wings, and I would have stayed there a little bit longer, actually, but I didn't have the opportunity to do that.
Well, let's see where Alistair takes you next in a second, but I'll give you a few I remember then, Barry. So Rotherham and Sheffield, where I grew up. So you got Danny Williams, Sports in Rotherham, Johnny Quinn, Sports in Sheffield.
Sutcliffe Sports.
Oh, I don't remember Sutcliffe Sports. Sheaf Sports.
Yes.
Sheaf Sports in Sheffield was cricket. And the other one was someone I played cricket for, was ENS Sports in Rotherham. That became M&S Sports, right opposite Millmore. But they were places where you went and you could get specialist equipment, because you couldn't always, now you go somewhere bigger, shall we say, and you can't always get that specialist equipment that you wanted.
Yes, and unfortunately they are suffering with the retail landscape. Listen, all the independents were in Intersport. They had to join, and they had to put the banner outside, and they had to work as part of the group. But if you're an independent, it was the only place to be, because we could save you. We could make you operate for longer, more profitable, because of the power of the group, and the brands liked that, because instead of dealing with 200 retailers, they dealt with us.
Yeah, so it made life easier for them.
It suited everybody. It's a fabulous model. Actually, it's a bit like Spar, I think.
Yeah.
Spar's independent, Spar's in the buying groups, or a cooperative, and that sort of thing. It's
what's happening in the industry at this point? Because Adidas clearly were big, but Nike now have made it big as well. And how do those two big companies sort of shape the market today?
Well, they've powered on. They are giants, and everybody sort of still works around what's left. They are machines. They do big numbers. They've got a huge operation, retail and wholesale, and they haven't really wavered. They knock themselves out depending on what World Cup it is and what football team it is, but they go toe to toe with huge marketing spend. So you end up, and what I've tried to do is go with the brand that I've represented into the places that they don't succeed in, and there's still plenty of scope in that.
And that leads us nicely to Asics.
And you said Alistair was waiting in the wings for you here.
Yeah, Alistair left New Balance and went to Clark's, actually, as a head of ladies fashion, I think, director, for a couple of years. And then he ended up with Asics and as the chief exec. And he knocked on my door after a year at Intersport, say, listen, I want to make some changes with the UK and Ireland, and I'd like you to become managing director. And that 2 words, I've never been a managing director, just got me very excited. But I enjoyed Intersport a lot, and I felt as though we were on a fabulous journey, and a year in wasn't enough for me. So I used to meet Alistair every 3 or 4 months near where he lives, near Loughborough. And he said, right, you ready? Are you ready? I'm going, no, I'm not ready yet. Anyway, we had one meeting, and he said, okay, this is the last chance. This is the last meeting and coffee we're going to have.
Yeah.
We'll still be friends, but I really need to know, because I'm moving things around, and you've got a seat, but you've got to tell me. And I couldn't refuse it, if I'm honest, because of the title, of the size of the role, and Alistair. I followed him around. And he was good to me at New Balance, very good to me. And I thought, this is perfect. I can reach a height. When I was a golf pro or a Fitwell rep, I would never have thought I would have a title of managing director with full P&L responsibility. I'm reporting to Alistair. I'm with a great brand. And it was down the road from me. It was based in Warrington again, which is bizarre. Yeah, all roads lead to
It's the epicenter.
sport. and the rest is, what's that, 13 years on.
So, Barry, you said earlier that Alistair won't allow you to have the bits he liked. How did that change now?
Well, actually, there is a connection. So I did managing director UK and Ireland, full P&L responsibility. Alistair was based in Amsterdam, our head office. So he was out the country Monday to Friday. I reported into him. He let me go, though. He just trusted me. So again, it was very nice, because even through New Balance and Intersport, sometimes I wasn't sure if people wanted me in the room.
Yeah.
I always had that feeling, and knowing that Alistair wanted me in that room really inspired me again. So I spent 6 years there. And then a few changes, and then I was put into this project management for a whole restructure of the whole European business based out of Amsterdam, which I did for a year. But that was only a year's contract. And then talking to Alistair one night, talk about my future, he said, "What about South Africa?" And it was completely out of the blue. He said, "I want somebody to go and grow and change the business down there, and it's yours if you want it."
And how did that conversation go at home? Was it, let's jump at it, let's go, or were you a bit tentative?
Yeah, well, my new wife at the time has a lot of history with South Africa, coincidentally with her ex-husband and family. So we were looking for something. And the kids were growing up, and they were sort of moving around and maybe leaving the UK. So we decided that why not? If it doesn't work, we can always come home.
Yeah.
And it was and has been an amazing journey. But Alistair gave me that break again, and he trusted me, and he put me here. He got me here. They made it very simple. And Alistair. So he gave me Africa eventually. So yeah, but it was funny. All the things that Alice used to tell me about his visits here, I've now experienced. So all the accounts, all the people, all the venues of South Africa's business, were in my memory, because he loved it here, and he was inspired by South Africa, and it was nice of him to eventually transfer it over to me.
And it sounds like you love it too. You're living by the ocean. There's a great outdoor lifestyle. I imagine you live pretty near the golf course. So all that's worked out pretty well in the end, Barry.
Yes, it has. I live on a golf estate. My wife is lady captain. So
brilliant.
I've kind of come a full circle that I still enjoy my golf. I've never left golf. I've never left the sporting arena. And I've been very fortunate. When you look at what the sports trade has done for me is, on a personal level, is it gets you inside the ropes.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that, the tickets and the events and the VIP experiences are just incredible sometimes. And, I have played football at Wembley.
Yeah.
And I have had dinner at the New Camp on the pitch with 300 people, with Pep Guardiola having a talk. And, this is all with customers, and those sort of things have inspired me. And it keeps you in the trade, actually. He's got a big hole to say, listen, if I got out of this and I ran a company selling table mats, I might not just get this invite. So what's interesting is that the people that I've either developed or worked alongside or employed, even going back to my Adidas days, most of them are still in the trade.
Yeah.
Globally, with big jobs, but representing Adi or Puma or Nike or Skechers or Brooks or Hoka, and we just go around and I see them on LinkedIn and we wish happy birthdays and stuff, but very few people get out of this trade, very few. But the experiences that it's brought alongside the work development and my career has been a real treat, I must admit.
So as we come to the end of our time together, Barry, we firstly we want to thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you, Barry.
On Leading to Here to share your journey to here to where you are today. But we like to leave you with 3 quick fire questions to answer. Okay, so I'll fire these at you. Just give us what comes to the top of your mind. Are you ready?
Okay.
Keep it clean, though.
Okay.
First one. Looking back, what one thing are you most proud of?
Probably my people development, and I've just mentioned it now because it came into my head. The fact that I may have employed these people, given them a chance, and look what they've done, and they're still in the trade. As I say, globally, I've just seen something on LinkedIn about a guy that's going to run North America for Puma, Andrew Rudolph. He was a rep from Glasgow, all those years ago, and he's moved his family to another continent. And look at him now. What a job. And but there's dozens of those, and I do think the people development and where they are now I'm very proud of.
What one thing would you do differently if you could go back?
Knowing what I know now, I probably would have had more of a faster career plan.
Yeah.
Rather than let it take shape for me, I probably would advise, if I was me again. So, if my son said, I'd be going, just move a bit faster with where you want to go and when you want to do it. So grab some time and prosper a bit quicker, because I took maybe 19 years at Adidas was amazing, but maybe I could have gone faster and bigger for myself. What one thing gives you the energy to keep you going? I can't afford to retire yet. But I know my work ethic, and it never wavers. And I think I said that before.
You did.
I'm one of the first in the office, and I don't have to be. And I'm one of the last here, and I don't have to be. But I don't mind. I enjoy working, and I think my work ethic is probably sets me in good stead from a very young age, like we've discussed.
Barry, thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Pleasure. Nice to see you guys again.
Ricky, really interesting chat with Barry. As we were talking, it made me reflect on quite a few things, but you kick us off. What stood out for you?
Well, absolutely agree. I think Barry's a really interesting character. He's got such a depth of history, particularly in his chosen field. And I think for me, one of the things that really shone through is this. He starts early on talking about, I wasn't the cleverest, I wasn't, particularly intelligent, I wasn't academic, which is why he went down the route he did.
Yeah.
But when you look at the roles that he's had, the impact that he's had, and the complexity in some of the organizations, I think he's massively underselling his intelligence. I think, he might not be qualified in the sense of an accountant would be or a lawyer, but he knows this business inside out, back to front. And for me, that was really impressive.
Yeah, and he's worked that out for himself, which is
self-taught.
Yeah, clearly a sign of massive intelligence. All right, maybe he didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge and come out with some fancy degree, but it was interesting. We talked about he liked trading when he was really young.
Yeah, entrepreneurial.
Yeah, and that intelligence has taken him right through his career. That sort of entrepreneurial intelligence did stand out. You're right.
I think that led really nicely into the people development stuff, because he talked about it was always about attitude over qualification. He was more interested in, do you have the energy, the desire, the passion? And that was more important to him in recruiting. Yeah. And he acknowledges you don't always get it right, but fundamentally, attitude was everything for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you mentioned people development, because he talked at the end, didn't he, about how proud he was of some of the people that have worked for him, that have gone on. He sees them now in sort of roles within the industry still mainly, but he seems and felt proud that he'd helped people do that, just as he had been helped. And he talked about 3 bosses, didn't he, that had made a big impression on him. But I'm sure there are people that will look back on their careers and they'll talk about Barry in the same way that he talks about Bob, Alistair,
and Kaz,
who made a big impression on him.
Well, you know what, and that there's a real humbleness about him and his achievements. And you look, when we had the privilege of looking at his CV and talking it through with him, he's achieved some significant results in some huge brands. But he referred to these things as they gave me the breaks. And I kind of flip that and go, no, your attitude, your work ethic, your contribution created an environment where you made it a no-brainer for them. You were the right person at the right time to take the opportunity. It wasn't about you were given anything. You earned it. And I think, that you talked about work ethic a lot in his work ethic. He talked about that a lot in the interview. And I think that really shines through.
Yeah, work ethic was really central for him. And I think the other thing for me that stood out, and I got it just in his tone of voice, and I've worked closely with him over the years, and I've seen him doing it, one-on-one with people and in groups. He is enthusiastic, and his enthusiasm can be infectious. And, when I've worked closely with him, I've seen him bring people in and enthuse them and set them off. And I think that came through in the conversation that we had with him as well.
Yes, because he referenced, I am the glue that brings it all together. So he absolutely sees his role as the leader of a team is to mobilize, enthuse, absolutely, and bring this group together. And one of the things he talked about is this: good leaders make you feel wanted. And it was really clear to him in certain parts of his career he didn't feel wanted, and then he moved on. But he really brought that to life, not in his enthusiasm, in the opportunities he created, in the exposure to the broader business. And I think that enthusiasm really does drive the want to work for him, want to do your best for him, because I think he mirrored that and learnt that from some of the bosses. He wanted to do well for all of those 3 key influences he talked about, didn't he?
He did indeed. So, Ricky, another really interesting interview. Please join us again next time on Leading to Here, when we'll be talking to another fascinating but relatable and everyday leader from around the world.
Leading to Here. For more episodes, visit us at thinkingfocus.com/leading to here.